You are listening to the More Life podcast.
More Life podcast.
More life.
More life. This is
the More Life podcast.
Hi everyone, welcome back to More Life. I am so excited to have you here joining our conversations, and particularly for this episode, our Healthcare Heroes episode with a special edition, Physio Friends. And I thought who better to get on than my actual physio friends. So I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves.
Hi everyone, I'm Molly.
Hi, I'm Miriam. Myrna. And Hannah.
And we thought we'd kick off by speaking about uni, because that's where we all met. So speaking of the uni days, I don't know about you, but before going to uni, I had this impression that uni was going to be super chill, like you're only in there a few days, that sort of thing. And then when we started physio, it was a lot. It was like 5 days, always there, like back-to-back dudes. But how did you guys find uni?
It's a little bit like hard to describe because like you have the really fun social side, like you know you make heaps of friends there, but it has like a next level of stress, and you kind of, it's not like school where it was like manageable to be able to memorize everything.
Yeah.
And then in uni the content is so much bigger, and you feel like more pressure because you know like it's your career.
Yeah,
you know?
Literally.
So yeah, just having that extra level of stress kind of made it so overwhelming for me, where I felt like always like a failure because I wasn't living up to my expectations of myself. But looking back, like that's just what you get 2020 vision of what it was like. But it helped me have better expectations, more realistic expectations. So.
For sure, yeah. No, that's a good point.
I probably quite enjoyed uni. I liked school and study, so it was very good for me to be in that environment again. Yeah, making new friends is obviously great as well.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy to have you guys.
Aww. It's so sentimental. I love it.
Yeah, a kind of a combination of both, because there's it's a new environment. You have so much more freedom. You have so much more time. It's more flexible for you. At the same time, it's all on your head. If it all goes wrong, if it all goes right, you've got to kind of set yourself up for that, and that even includes who you're talking with, who you're spending time with. But it was fun. Some of the most enjoyable bits of uni was when we'd kind of collaborate, either this group or even just like other uni students, and just try and go, okay, what the heck was that technique that we were trying to
Yeah, exactly. That's true, actually. Yeah. Any thoughts, Marina?
Yes, well, I think it was good looking back, but in it, the idea of independency, because at school, like the teachers would tell you, oh, you've got this assignment to like this weekend. So you guys made me go through this because I always forget. Like, we'd have a chat and be like, how are you going with the assignment tomorrow? I was like, there's an assignment tomorrow?
Yeah.
So the idea of independent.
For sure, yeah. I feel like you touched on, because physio is such a collaborative thing at uni, because I remember our first, must have been the initial MUSC, or like background foundation MUSC units, where we're like, all right, partner up, and you're going to start measuring like joint range and muscle strength. And I was like, whoa, like this is week 1, what are you doing? And already you're like with strangers, you're like, can you take off your shirt so I can have a look at this? Like that sort of thing. So yeah, that's definitely a big point. How did you find, we were talking about it before, but how like you essentially kind of get desensitized to bodies because you're just touching bodies and working with bodies all the time. How did you guys find that?
I remember initially, like, for that first MUSC unit, and, like, the first week they didn't, like, make us do anything, but they were like, heads up, next class, like, you guys need to be wearing, like, appropriate attire so that you can remove your shirts and that sort of thing, so we can look at body alignment. Yeah. And so I remember, like, just talking about it casually with my parents, and my dad's like, what? And he's like, are there men in this class?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's like a physio class.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's all appropriate. Like, there's a teacher there. Like,
Yeah.
very, like, professional.
Nothing crazy.
But he was just, like, so affronted by it. And I was, like, already, like, second week in, I was always like, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And
That's
then,
true.
just talking about it, like, later, like what is okay to talk about in different settings, like even at the table with dinner, like some people are like, well, we don't like talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh, what do you mean? It's just like bodily functions.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
For sure, yeah.
But you forget what's appropriate and what's not.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. I shared this before, but like, I remember when I went for a facial and the lady was like, yep, so for this facial, like, we're just going to need you to take off your top because we need to, and I was like, oh, okay, and I just removed my top, and she was like, well, I was going to leave to give you some privacy, and I was like, privacy for what? Like, what do you mean? But you just get so, you're like, but this is a professional environment. We need to do what we need to do. Like, let's get to it. But yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah.
I feel like that's probably similar to when we started getting to like the gender health studies.
Oh, that was the worst.
Yeah.
You what? That was the worst. I actually remember it being like bad for you. Like,
Yeah,
why are you
Hannah
saying
was
the word?
my friend.
Your support person.
I definitely remember the first week, first or second week, and everyone being super ginger around each other. Like, oh, you don't have to lift your whole pants, just roll it up, and you're trying to feel the knee, and you've just rolled up a quarter of the shin, and you're being very shy about each other. And then within like a few weeks, you have an exam, and there's a time crunch, and it's like just strip.
Yeah,
Just go.
essentially.
And so by the time you get to like third year,
Yeah.
it's like, hey, I need a shoulder to practice on, and like 3 people will have shaken off.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, yeah, just practice on me. And then, yeah, same at home. Like, I'm really quick to just talk about like anything kind of medical or personal or whatever, or I just kind of go like, yeah, just take this and do this, and they're just completely like surprised.
Yeah, it's like a different world for them. They're like, what are
Yeah.
you doing this?
How are you so okay with this? I can watch a lot more like war movies and like gore and stuff now with no real blinking.
Yeah, exactly. What else about uni did we have? Favorite memory?
I remember when we did our combined birthday.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that was
So
actually really
good.
cool. We had, so who are the birthday twins? We're birthday twins.
And then we,
And you're birthday twins. And so we did this uni event and invited like the whole cohort, I think.
Yeah.
And we just like after a class at uni, and we had like food and music and that sort
Yeah,
of thing.
and we all
That's
wore
cool.
like a lace dress.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. it
Why
was
did I
cool.
forget about that? That's so cool.
Not a physio memory, but a physio cool.
Yeah, no,
it was
definitely.
like fresh before placement though, to be fair.
Yes, that's right.
Like placement is huge, but
Maybe
that
it
was
wa-
really fun.
It wiped our brains.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Anything before that moment, amnesia.
Yeah, literally.
I think like a shocking memory was probably the anatomy labs and the cadavers
Ooh,
for the
yes.
first time. Yes, just seeing human body parts and having to identify muscles and everything.
Yeah,
It
for
was
sure.
very confronting.
Yeah, I think because that was the first time I'd even like seen like a lifeless body.
Same.
So it was like, and they're not all in one piece.
Yeah,
you know? Like,
exactly.
yeah, that was
It was
kind
a
of
lot.
the most confronting thing.
I definitely
Yeah.
had to like almost detach myself from what was happening. Like, because
Yeah.
I'd walk in there and be like, oh my goodness, a dead body. And then I'd have to be like, yeah, just be like, oh, just pretend it's not. Like, you know, like I really had to think my way out of it and try to, yeah, it was a very weird experience.
Yeah,
I
you
think
just
like,
kinda
yeah.
go through that like, okay, like you kind of almost just treat it like textbook. You're like, okay, like that's this muscle and it attaches to that, and you like kind of have to like remove that it's like a human part. It's just
Yeah.
like a textbook diagram kind of
Exactly.
thing.
Yeah. And I don't think I ever got over it, to be honest. Yeah.
No.
You know what I found worse was the brain dissection more than the cadavers. But
Interesting,
I
yeah. Because we
didn't
did do a bit of dissections.
yes.
I don't know why, but I feel like the organs I was kind of prepared for because we'd done that in biology at school.
Yeah.
So I was like, I was more interested in that,
Mm.
but it was like more seeing the the shape,
Yes.
Yes.
the
Or
shell
like,
of the human. You know?
did we
Like,
see many, like, we did do head and neck as well.
Yeah.
that was
Yes.
a lot because you're like
And
seeing a
that
face
was-
and you're like, that's
yeah.
someone.
Yeah, and some of them still had their
Yeah.
eyes in.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh.
Or like the hand with the nails.
Yeah.
Yes, and you can like
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
identifying features or tattoos as well. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, just little things where you're like, in your head, you're like, oh my goodness, this is a person that, yeah.
Like they were alive.
Yeah.
Mm.
Though I
Yeah.
did sometimes find that like depending on the people you were with, you could or you couldn't get over it pretty quick.
Mhm.
So like week 1 and 2, everyone's really nervous. The first day you don't look at anything, you don't touch anything, but there's like a bagged up leg in the corner there.
Yeah.
But then like a few weeks go by and everyone's suddenly involved in figuring out like functional anatomy and linking it to what we're learning, and they're like, look, that's like the nerve that does this thing. Suddenly you kind of join up in their enthusiasm.
That's true.
And the
actually.
lecturer's completely chill about it because he does it all the time.
Yeah.
Like, so passionate.
And so you go from like worried to looking at his face that's just calm.
Chill.
Okay,
For sure.
I could do this for another 30 minutes, it's fine.
Yeah.
I'll wash my hands thoroughly, but yes, we had gloves, but anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of, or you actually briefly mentioned, Hannah, imposter syndrome.
Yes.
Did that ever go away for everyone?
It still is in me.
I know. I feel like it's kind of an encouragement to people because, like, I remember even in, you've like gone through uni, you've done your placement, you've passed your placement, so that's why you're, you know, obviously graduated in physio, and then you're kind of back in this place of being like, oh my goodness, I feel like I don't belong here. Like, what do I know? What don't I know? Like that whole thing. How about you guys? Have you felt that as well?
Yeah, I still feel like there's always things that you don't know, but I feel like that comes across in any aspect of life. There's always something else to learn, and some new research, for example, that comes out that you need to keep up with. You just got to keep on top of it and keep learning and be open to learning new things instead of staying stuck in your ways.
Yeah, for sure. I think it is encouraging seeing like people who've been physios for 20, 30 years and they're also learning new stuff, like you're saying with new research, because our profession's obviously a growing one. There's always new stuff coming out. So it's like, oh, I'm not the only one learning things. What is the best part about working in healthcare?
People.
Yeah. Same. I love that. People.
Yeah.
We all agree, people. Love it.
Making like a change to people's lives and like a noticeable change, and they can come back and say, well, to some physio professionals, they can come back and say like, thank you, like this and this and this has changed.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see the difference, and it's not blood and gore.
Yeah.
So, you know.
For sure.
I think just learning about people's lives and their specific goals that they want to get back to, and us as physios helping them try to get back to that as soon as possible.
Yeah.
It's really
Like that
cool.
sense of trying to empower them to like reach it, like you wanting them to gain more independence, like you wanting to help them gain more skills, you wanting to help them manage certain areas of their life, and like you're with them on a journey, which I really like about it. Yeah,
For sure, yeah. I find similar to what both of you are saying, or all of you, you go with them on this journey of trying to get a goal, and you know that feeling when you're like, oh, like it's done now, like we got there, that's it. And then they always say thank you to you, and you're like, you did the work. Like we wouldn't have been here if you didn't actually do something. So yeah, I love that feeling. The worst part about working in healthcare, or difficult part.
I guess sort of the exact opposite of that. Sometimes you might not be able to fix everything.
people.
You might just be working on maintaining someone's function, and that can be hard if you're not seeing any progress or helping them reach a goal, but trying to stop them from declining anymore is also a useful thing to be doing, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, like kind of that aspect of like unmet expectations as well. Like you can have people who, you know, they've had a condition for a certain amount of time and they really want to get back to the life that they had, but because of the nature of the condition they have, you just can't make that promise.
Yeah.
And that's probably the hardest part, because you want to be able to make that promise.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's true. I think that is a big part. It's quite interesting because people, obviously working with people can be difficult, like they can be difficult people to work with, but for some reason that's like a good challenge. Like I always love winning people over to whatever we're trying to do. But what's probably harder is because you, especially where I'm working now, you form such a strong relationship with people. And so when they reveal like probably the most like traumatic events of their lives, it's kind of like, oh, like, and you hear so much of it that you just feel so sad for them, and you're like, oh man, like some of the things they've been through, it's like it's in their past, but you're like, it's just so sad sometimes.
You technically become a counsellor as well, as a part of physio.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes the difficult part for me is the emotional kind of part, when you're really sad, like you wish you can help, but you can do what you can do. And
For sure.
Yeah.
Because I think probably because our profession, I remember we heard this at uni, that you spend so much time with people, or you see them so often, that you're one of the types of health professionals that can see changes in them and that they feel connected to. And so, like, yeah, they end up like sharing all kinds of stuff that you're like, I just wanted to take your blood pressure. This one's exciting. What is the most fascinating diagnosis a patient has had that you've worked with?
Hannah, I think you had one prepared earlier.
Mine is probably functional neurological disorder.
I was going to say that too.
Yeah. So I have quite a few clients at the moment who have functional neurological disorder. And it's just so interesting that they can all be like so different. They can, and each day is different for them, and like they're unpredictable. Yeah, do I like maybe define
I was about to say that, and I was like, how do you want to define it?
I mean, how I always say it is like, it's usually like they've experienced a trauma or a stress, and basically the way their brain deals with it is manifesting it in physical symptoms. And so there's nothing actually wrong with the hardware of their brain, like the cells or the nerves or anything like that. It's the software. So like something about the signals that the brain is sending, there's like a glitch somewhere. So our role as physios is trying to like retrain and create new pathways in their brain, and just helping them regain the function of their completely fine nervous system. And that is just somehow still presenting like Parkinson's or a stroke or
I've had one, like you're saying, it was different. It was so fascinating because this patient was I'd gotten her back into bed, and then she was like, oh, can you move this for me? And I like, she wasn't really defining exactly what it was, and I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, oh, can you move that for me? You know, I can't move. Like she'd get freezing. And so I was like trying to figure it out. I'm like tapping her out. And then she like got up and she was like, I just wanted you to move this here. And then she got back down and she was back in her frozen state. And so like you see those kind of things, but like they're not aware of it sometimes. So like it was just so fascinating. And like, every patient I've worked with who has FND, it was just like interesting. It's crazy. It's so
like
funny.
One crazy one, like I was on placement, and he presented with like some like a vestibular stroke or cerebellar stroke, and we got him to do like the foot tap test. So tapping your foot as many times as you can on like a step, and he did like, I think he did maybe like 5 in 30 seconds, and then we got him to pour water from one cup to another and do the same thing, and he got like 20 in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And it's like the task was harder, but because his brain was distracted, he did better.
Yeah, that's so like, cool. Yeah. I love being able to come up with those little things where you're like, you know, when you see something, you're like, like I had this person who couldn't, like we're trying to get his range up, and he was like, I was like, yeah, just see if you can lift your arm, and he couldn't do it, and I was like, okay. And I was like, oh, hey, could you just like reach for that for me? And he like reached without even thinking about it. And this wasn't even FND, but like just being able to come up with little things in your practice where you're like, all right, let's get around this without him knowing. But yeah. How about you guys?
I mean, I don't know if I've had a lot of like crazy diagnoses kind of things, but I do tend to get a lot of like, this is the condition, definitely is what they have, and the symptoms they have are just completely off textbook. They're just never, and sometimes it's something that like I'll just kind of mention to the senior physios just for a bit of insight, and they go, oh, we've not really seen that before, that's not super common, or like another condition that they have that's impacting their ability to get better, and then you have to navigate this thing that's out of your scope. So there was a guy that I was treating for like chest and lung and that kind of stuff. This guy, he kept having absence seizures while we're treating, like specifically when we're doing big breaths and huffing and that. And I was the first one to pick it up, and I had to kind of bring that to the next person in charge, and you had to kind of do that a couple of times before a doctor happened to see one, and then got everyone to be aware of it. but it was the first time I'd ever seen an absent seizure in real life, just someone
Wow.
completely phase out. So yeah, very, very interesting. And then you have to keep calm no matter what, if you've seen something, if you haven't seen something before, because they're freaked out because they know time has passed, but they can't control when it happens. It just happens.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was really cool.
I currently work with a lot of people with cerebral palsy, and something that's very fascinating to me is the variability in how that can present. So cerebral palsy is more of an umbrella term for when there's an injury to the developing brain, like before 2 years of age. So I see some kids that have like hemiplegia, so some weakness on one side. You would hardly even notice if you haven't done a physio degree.
Yeah.
If they were just walking down the street, you might not have any idea that they did have a disability. Then on the other end of the spectrum, you might have someone in a wheelchair full time who doesn't have any sort of voluntary movement and non-verbal as well. So just the scale of that one diagnosis and how differently it can present in everyone.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah. Well, for me, like something similar, the Parkinson's disease, like the variability of, as well as the representation. I think this is one of maybe the interesting ones, but the most interesting diagnosis I've come across was stiff person syndrome, which is similar to Parkinson's in the presentation, but it's a rare progressive neurological condition where they become very stiff, especially in the spinal cord, like in the trunk. And then the way they have the shuffling gait and all of these presentations. But it was really interesting one. I've never come across it. Like at uni, we didn't get taught about it. Just
There's so much stuff that you learn once you get in the real world as well.
Yeah.
I remember having this one lady who I was treating for her pain. Like she came into hospital just having leg pain, and then obviously the whole team eventually came to the conclusion that she had, and I just forgot what it's called, like melorrheostosis or something. Essentially her bones were like melting candle wax, and so that would cause pain in her legs, and like the symptoms, she'd have flare-ups and then it would come back down. But yeah, and like when you see the x-rays, you literally see it looks like there's like wax melting along the side of a candle, but that's like her femur. That was fascinating too.
Wow.
I know.
Crazy.
Yeah. So, yeah. We'll look it up
Actually,
later.
Yeah, but I don't know about you guys, but even like your first patient who has dementia, like you get told about it, you get told they do certain things, but just to register when it's happening. Like the first one I got, nobody actually had put it down yet. I think it was new for her.
Yeah.
And so like you walk in and they're like furiously, doing a task, staring completely at a wall. They're not in the same world as you, but they're adamant that they are. And I don't know, I always found that one fascinating.
Yeah, dementia is a really interesting one too. Such a big area. The next question was, what are some myths about physiotherapy? But I think I'd probably start with saying that we only do musc physio, so bones and like
Or
joint
sports.
injuries and
Yes.
sports. But there's so many different areas. What are some like cool areas that you guys have heard of, or different areas of physio?
I guess vestibular is something that's been quite interesting to me, like having any inner ear pathology and dizziness symptoms. When I went into physio, I didn't really think that was something I'd be treating or able to treat. So
Yeah, for sure.
definitely.
Yeah, definitely like chest and lung, respiratory kind of physio. To tell someone like, you have these conditions on board, we can help with that. The lungs need movement therapy to get better. And it's like, oh, really?
Yeah.
But also like women's and men's health.
Yes. Yeah. That's
Did
a big
not
area.
think that would be, and it's huge. And there's so many people who, and it always comes in the guise of like back pain, and they always come in, and you have to pry because it's not that well advertised. And you're like, this could really help you and change your life, at least your quality of life. And it's always really nice to know when you've been able to do that for a person. Because no one else will talk about it with them. You have to be the one to kind of open that door.
And I feel like there's a lot of men and women with like, just even if you just talk about pelvic floor issues that don't realize that it's not normal, or they know it's not normal but they don't want to talk about it. I
Yeah.
guess is because it's so personal.
Or they're nervous that you're gonna I need to do a whole test and needs to get an internal exam or something really invasive. Not necessary.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. You almost need to make people aware, or you want people to be aware that, hey, like, we can help, but we're just gonna have to find out somehow that this is something that you need. Or if they knew that we were there for that, for pelvic floor physio for men's and women's health, then probably so many people would just be walking around with a better quality of life and not worrying about, I can't run because I might leak, or just all sorts of stuff. But Any
I
other
think vestibular as well, and I think falls prevention, because a lot of the people would come in like they have this pain, but then we're like, I can help you with more than the pain.
Yes.
So
I know. I do that all the time where I'm like, okay, so what about this though?
You have pain because you had a fall, then I can help you with the rehab to get you not to fall, and then you won't have the pain. I don't know.
Exactly.
The idea of falls prevention and vestibular is one for me. Yeah.
I feel like they've all been touched on, but probably even like little stuff like your jaw and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I had a client who had like CP and autism, but he was having like jaw pain, and that was part of our treatment for him. I was like, I never thought I would have been like, we learned about it, but I never thought I would actually need to do it.
Yeah, exactly. True.
Yeah.
I think also one more, maybe like feet.
Yes.
Just feet in general, because we have podiatrists and they're amazing, go to them, but there are muscles in the foot and there are nerves and joints and all that in the feet. That's what we deal with. That's our bread and butter. Like, you can also see a physio, not like they're different. Anyway, they're different professions, but you can also see a physio for foot issues sometimes as well.
Yeah, and if us as physios, like, we do like the initial assessment and we're like, this might actually be better directed at podiatrists, and like, we're not scared to do that. Like, we want to collaborate with other people, but we can also be like an initial person. Like, we don't like, a lot of people also think that they need like a referral to see a physio.
Yes.
Whereas we can be like a direct point of contact for people.
Right off the street.
Walk in.
I remember when we had the exchange students from Chile, and like they're like, what's the coolest thing you've learned from your time in Australia? And they're like, it's so cool that physios here are first line practitioners. And I'm like, that doesn't happen everywhere around the world. The other area I heard from a physio who works with NASA. And so they do like a lot of like preparation for astronauts going into space,
like
and then
the
rehab once they
bone
come
density
back
stuff?
down. Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
which is really cool.
That is so cool.
So there's just like so many areas where you wouldn't think that you'd go into, like even like animal physio.
Yeah.
My brother wants me to do that.
Yeah. What is your favorite joint to treat? Or favorite joint in general?
I think mine is probably the shoulder, coming from like sporting background of softball, just throwing, and how mobile it is. Like, it can go basically anywhere, unfortunately, but
I'm not really like the neck and the back for me, because you can get results pretty quick and also pretty consistently, and you can make sort of long-term changes, and it's very common because many people live with an office job or something to do with desks, studying, whatever it is.
I think shoulder and neck.
No, neck too.
Cervicogenic headaches.
Yeah.
Yes.
I quite like the hip and lower back.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'd probably say shoulder is up there for me. In terms of like, for example, higher level like sports people, I really enjoy ankles. There's just like so much fun stuff that you can do, like even balance wise, and I love it. All right, what are some things you've heard from people when you tell them that you're a physio? Like random people that you encounter day to day.
So is that like a masseuse or?
Annoying.
Massage my neck.
I have like this pain, and I
Yes.
haven't like seen anyone yet. But like, do you know what it is?
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Would you like have a look?
And then they'll just look at you being like, yeah, my shoulder hurts. And you're like,
Can you just like treat it while I'm sitting here now?
You're like at a dinner, at a formal dinner, and they're like, yeah, so what actually happened is, and you're like,
And they would
okay.
stand and be like, when I squat like this, and when I do this, they're like,
I'm off duty now.
I'm off the clock. Yeah.
You can book an appointment.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting though, because with some people you don't mind. Like we were doing physio treatments just before each other. Any other things?
I think probably not when you tell someone, but like family and other friends that aren't physios, just sort of telling you their troubles and niggles and wanting some help with that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I usually don't mind with friends. I'm always like, oh yeah, like see what I can do, give you a little bit of advice. But I find family, like they don't want to listen to you. Yeah, like they'll ask you and they don't actually want to do anything you tell them.
Yeah,
So
they
you're
just
like,
think you have magic fingers all of a sudden now that you finished a physio degree.
Yeah,
And they're like, wait, I
exactly.
can do work.
I know, exactly.
to exercise?
Never treat your family.
Yeah.
Cardinal rule.
Oh, funniest patient experiences are things patients often say. I have recently found so many patients talking about how they injured their rotor cup.
Rotor cuff.
Rotor cup instead of rotator cuff. Oh. I like hear it all the time. I'm like, where did this come from?
Where did that start?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I had one who, like someone who asked me, do I have muscles here? Or is that just like bones? And
Yes.
So a lot of them would ask, like, is there muscles here? Like, they actually don't know.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, what's a muscle? Like, these kind of interesting questions.
I had that like literally this week. Someone who was like, they was talking about his wrist, and I was like, oh, let me show you what the wrist looks like an anatomy thing. And he was shook. He was like, I didn't know there were so many different things in the wrist. And I was like, he was like, I thought it was just like my bones, and I could see the skin over it. And I was like, it's a lot going on in there, baby. But yeah.
Yeah.
Even different layers of core. It's like, what? Like, I have that many? I don't think I have any muscle here.
Yeah. They're like, oh, I don't have abs. And you're like, but you do.
They're hidden, but they're there.
Yeah.
I think people saying like they've torn a bone or like broken a
Yeah.
tendon or something, just getting those little things mixed up a little
Yeah, for sure.
I find it also funny when you have like husband and wife kind of come in.
Yes, yeah.
Their
Straight
unique
away,
dynamic.
Yeah, their dynamics
They
always
become
interesting
each
to
other's
observe.
coaches. I
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah. And or they will dob on each other.
Yes,
Oh,
yeah.
I don't really. You do it all the time.
just that look.
Yeah, exactly.
You get a confirmation and there's honesty in the session. Like,
Or one of them will just look at you like,
They're just
It's
like,
like the person coming in with them is their accountability partner. They don't lie.
or what about when they argue? Have you ever had a couple argue in front of you?
I've had like
kinda
parents and children argue to each other.
Yeah, and you're kind of like, can you just
Tell
let's get this over with.
what's my
Got
position?
30 minutes on the clock. I thought we'd play a little game, a little true or false game. We're not testing your knowledge, don't worry. But I've got these paddles for you, and obviously they're red and green, so it's true or false. What we'll do, so red is false. You can face the red towards the camera and say false, and then green is true. And it's pretty simple. Let's get into it. You ready? Alrighty, so first question. The titles physiotherapy and physical therapy are interchangeable.
Yes.
True. We've all got green across the board. That's it. So they're different in different countries, but it's essentially the same thing. All right. Hydrotherapy dates back to about 460 BC. Oh, three trues, one false. Already.
Tools back then.
They did. Hippocrates, actually, a Greek physician known as the father of Western medicine, used therapy and water to treat some patients. So it's technically hydrotherapy. Might not be how we define it now, but yeah.
It's therapy and water.
Yes. I'll get you guys to say true or false, just for people who aren't watching as well, if they're just listening.
We're all like,
Sorry.
You're like, someone just looks scared. You're like, I think it's true.
I don't know how smart I am.
Yeah. Oh no. All right. World Physiotherapy Day is celebrated in June.
True.
Oh, false, you guys.
Hannah was so
I don't know why.
Is it September?
Yes, it is.
I didn't know.
I got it right because when it was like physio day, I was like to my fiance at the time, I was like, I expect a present.
It's like your one memory.
He wrote me a song.
Oh, that's
yeah.
so nice.
That's cute. No.
I heard it. Yeah, it was like Hannah Cato is my favorite physio.
Oh, I love that.
Hannah Cato is my favorite physio. Yeah, she makes me go, whoa. If I've got a sore knee.
Physiotherapy used to be a female-only profession.
That's like false.
Feel false.
False.
True. Hannah's winning this one. This is a good one, yes. I remember having a person come in when I was working in admin at uni, and it was this older gentleman who came in, probably at least 70s, and I told him I was studying physio, and he was like, oh, wow, I always wanted to do that, but they would never let a man do it. And I was like, what do you mean? And that's how I was like, wait, it used to be female only. And then I vaguely remember learning about it when we first started. But yes, physio used to be females only. And even in Australia right now, 65% of physios are female.
Wow.
So it's evening out a little bit, but it's still like, I guess it's the healthcare industry in general. Physiotherapy was formally established in the 70s. True or false?
I'm just going to copy Hannah on this one.
Hannah, what are you doing? You're doing intermediate.
At the moment, I feel like
I thought it was earlier.
False.
But formally established?
it was formally established not too long ago. Like I feel like
Yeah.
physio is a pretty new profession. But I don't know.
I'm going to say false.
I don't know dates.
Go with your gut. You probably Here you go.
Alrighty.
True.
We've got true, false, false. So 50%. The answer is actually false. The first professional society of physiotherapists was founded by Mary Macmillan in 1921. And that was the American Women's Physical Therapeutic Association, which was established just after World War I. So essentially, they had a different name. I forgot what they're called. They had a different name, but their role was to get soldiers rehabilitated. And then she obviously put this thing together. And yeah, I heard an interesting, I was just looking at some of the fun facts. It wasn't her, but it was another person who took a case to the Supreme Court for why they should be allowed to not wear skirts while working. They wanted to wear like pants, essentially, these different types of pants, because it was more practical for their job, and it got rejected. They said, no, there's no way you're not wearing a skirt. That makes no sense for a woman to be wearing anything other than a skirt.
Wow.
Fascinating.
Emphasis
Not
on a
wanna
piece
wear
of
a skirt.
clothing.
I know. The majority of physiotherapists in Australia work in regional and remote locations. True or false?
False.
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 Oh, that was a nice and easy way to end it. But yes, the answer is false. 81% of physios work in metropolitan areas.
Yep.
Which is cool. That was really good. You guys did well, I think.
We're not sure.
I'm trying to remember what we had. I've met a few people recently. Usually they're at school or they're in a different profession and they're like, oh, I kind of want to do physio when I'm older. Or they are wanting to transition into physio from a different career. What's your overall impression? Final thoughts?
Go for it. If that's what you want to do, the initial impression is that you have to be very smart or very maybe like exercise oriented, like
Yeah,
those
like
high skilled like
super
PE students, athletes. But anyone can do it. We had people from all different kinds of backgrounds, like mature age students who'd been working just regular kind of on the ground jobs. People who were switching from an exercise-based job as well. High schoolers straight away. Like, if it's something you want, just have a look into how, and don't set limits for yourself.
For sure. It definitely isn't easy. It takes a lot of
Yeah,
Yeah, be
commitment.
prepared
Lot of
to
work.
put in a lot of work.
be prepared to cry.
Yeah, like it is like people. I think sometimes the impression is given that physios are kind of like a lesser profession, but we do actually get taught a lot, and its content is quite detailed and comprehensive. So like be prepared to have a lot of content and be prepared to have to work hard. Like it's almost more of a black and white degree where your answer will be right or wrong. Like it's not like an English one where you can interpret something, and you can show your own opinion and that sort of thing.
There's a clinical reasoning
there's
process to get to somewhere. Yeah.
Because you're working with people's bodies, and there's a right and a wrong way to deal with people and their health. So just be prepared for that. And one thing I always say to high schoolers is be prepared for uni to just generally be overwhelming, because it's way different compared to school. Like it's all self-directed. You don't have as much of a routine, because some days you're at uni at like 3 and the next day you're at uni at 8, and your schedule changes from semester to semester. So it's almost like they kind of beat themselves up because they don't have like this routine, and they're not meeting the standard that they used to meet in high school. But like uni's hard. Give yourself some grace, but keep
Chat to the lecturers as well.
Keep going, keep moving forward, keep giving your best, and keep trying to be the best professional you can be.
And I guess definitely if you want to do physio, you kind of have to love to work with people, because some people I know already, like they would switch to the business side of physio after they graduate because they don't like working with people. So a big part of it is like you gotta love, and the patients really later after you graduate, they don't teach you that specifically at uni, but you have to be caring to the patient. Like that also is a big part of it, because a lot of them are sick and going through hard things. So.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to keep it quite simple. If you're like fascinated with the human body, and like Myrna said, if you love to work with people and you're willing to help them, then I think go for it.
Yeah. All right, before we finish off, what does more life mean to you?
More meaning, basically. Like, if there's not a purpose or a meaning for why I'm doing something, then it doesn't feel like life or living. Like you're just going through a routine.
Emotions.
So having meaning and people means having more of life for me.
Yeah, that's cool.
I guess having a mission and like serving people, or like serve.
I know, I was going to say merch drop. I'm going to get myself one.
Like serving people and quality, and doing things like living life as a mission rather than just like how people always say, I can't wait for this year to finish, or I can't wait for this. This is not more life. This is your life. So having a mission every day, helping someone or making a difference to someone.
Yeah, that's cool. I love it.
I agree with Myrna. Just even helping people in little ways, or doesn't have to be much. Just spending time with people and giving them your ears and listening to them. And following your passions and helping others reach theirs, I guess, as well.
Like, well, it's all pretty much been said. I do agree with what you guys have said. But just making moments of your life more meaningful, even if that's at work or at a social event that like maybe you didn't 100% want to be at. Like you're there, like make the most of where you are, and with whoever's around you as well.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, making my life more meaningful. I really loved just talking firstly about physio stuff in general, but spending this time together. We're actually here for the weekend together, so we're cool, but but it's been so much fun. So great to hear insights. We haven't really gone this deep into physio talk since we graduated, I don't think, together. So really great to have you guys authentically share. But thank you so much for tuning in, everyone, giving us your ears and giving us your time. Tune into the next episode of More Life, and let me know as well what you took away from this. If you want to get into physio, get in contact with me. I'm sure the girlies would love to share their thoughts and share anything that can help you as well. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.